All right, today is the day. Young Ian here. Bought him a JK two-door. What year is this one, Ian? 07. 07 JK two-door. First mod, rock your 4x4 stickers. Second mod was the addition of the Moto built hatchet front bumper. So frame shop bumper. Dang it, Drew, you're making too much noise. Hurry. All right, so we've got, Drew is pulling this thing apart for next mod. Jack's making way too much noise, so sorry about that. Up here, we've got the Super Winch SX10 winch with synthetic rope. Have some amber diode dynamics fog lights in there. And this was a frame chop bumper, so choppy on the frame. Sway bar bracket here stayed intact, but the other bracket with the crash bar is deleted. Looks pretty sick. He's got some terrible camber issues right now up front. We're gonna fix that tonight. But it is all night build on Ian's XJ. Somebody's about to hack up a lung outside, but we've got some recycled Fox 2.0s, some new rear 2.0s, Knoxville driveline, hooked us up 1350 CB drive shaft in the rear, and we've got a full MetalCloak GameChanger kit going down. Stay tuned. All right, the guys are over here. Jack, you in particular, what's your contribution tonight to Ian's build? Yeah.
I might be able to take that hitch out real quick.
Okay, so he's not going to help at all. He's got, he's been whipped, and he is going to Nashville to visit his girlfriend. So that leaves.
We're going to a concert and Supercross.
They're going to Supercross and a concert, so he has a decent excuse. But we've got Nick, Ian, and Drew pulling apart the rear axle here. We've got a few parts already on the ground: track bar, old sway bar links, rear shocks. This thing's looking, it's a little dingy, but we're gonna make it right, and probably gonna end up cutting these perches off, rolling them up about 10 degrees. One thing we did remove up here is Drew got that bracket off for the parking brake cables, and it looks like we already have a little issue here on this parking brake cable. He might need to replace that one at some point. But anyway, looking good. Since this is a two-door, and I wanna say 2.5 or 3.5 inch kit, we're gonna take these spring perches and roll them. So this one here we've cut off. We'll go over here to the bench, grab that. So basically, before we took it apart, we marked that little position right there, and we're gonna leave that one on there, check the angle of it. And this one here essentially is going to roll forward about 12 degrees and get welded back on. That way he doesn't have a cheesy little spring angled bracket on there or a bushing, and that'll give him a good angle on those rear coil springs. Also, while we've got this thing apart, we're putting a little coat of paint, just kind of dressing it up a little bit. Had a little bit of surface rust, so we've wiped down the frame good with some brake cleaner and put some good MRO epoxy paint on here. That way it'll look nice and clean when it's all done and finished. All right, so factory perch is at -15, roughly. So we're gonna go over here and make that around -3. And then we're gonna weld that in place and make sure that our line here is marked up. So we're gonna slide this little guy over just a little bit. Whoops. Anyway, we're gonna get that line lined up, and then that one was -15, this one's gonna be -3, which will make that coil sit a little more level at ride height. All right, we've got this little perch welded on. We'll go around here to the front side. So that thing is all in place and welded in. Now we're gonna move over here and match that over here. We are approaching 8 o'clock. The rear suspension is complete. Happened pretty quickly, mainly because we had like 4 people working on it. But we've painted up the frame, made it look real nice. Rear brake hoses are on. Plenty of travel left if he wants to put a longer shock, or some maybe Evo Rockstar skids. Longer sway bar links, track bar bracket, track bar, Fox 2.0 shocks. We twisted it up without the springs in it, and he needed 3 inches of bump stop. And then we're also going to end up probably removing this inner fender liner and doing a slight trim job on these fenders. We've got some adjustments to do once it's on the ground with the track bar. That's why that's still loose. But we set it up at ride height off of another one we had here in the shop that was comparable, and got the pinion angle set. Jam nuts are tight. Hop under here. We have the parking brake cables run underneath the cross member and tied together. And he had a little bit of a floppy cable here on this side, so we just zip tied it with that foam piece to that U-bolt. But anyway, that is back connected. Everything's looking good. And this is a 1350 drive shaft from Knoxville Driveline. And on the transfer case, we swapped out the flange there to a 1350 flange. And then, of course, don't forget to grease the slip yoke. What we did is we compressed it, extended it, greased it 3 or 4 times, and just cycled it to make sure that that gets plenty of lubricant and stays running smoothly. Everybody's left. It's just me and Ian left, and we've got the front to get on. So let's move up there. We have disconnected the brake hoses to put the new ones on. We've painted the frame on both sides, the sway bar underneath on the sway bar, and then we cut the frame tube down on both sides just to give it clearance on the side of the sway bar during normal driving travel. Everything looks really, really good. This bump stop was still intact and okay. When we disassembled this other side, that one was just crumbled, and unfortunately we don't have one today, so we're going to order one of those and try to slide it in after the fact. Now, note that is the stock front drive shaft. We're going to check it at full travel, see what it looks like. The rear one on a 2-door is more important in the beginning, and then he probably will end up upgrading that front one here in just a few months, we hope. Let's check out the wheels and tires here. So the tires are 37 1250 17 KM3s. He bought these used from a customer that took them off at $392 and upgraded sizes. And these are true beadlock Dirty Life Enigma machine finish. It's got the cool little milled accents on the ring. Looks really sharp. It's gonna look good on that silver Jeep. Now, road force was all under 20 pounds on all of these used tires, and they took less than 6 ounces to balance. So that was great. Let's get these things put on and move right along. We've made some good progress here the last few hours. Ian is finishing up some sway bar disconnect items. What we've done, we've chosen to move these up here in this body mount, and you can see here we trimmed out the body mount for clearance so that would work. The reason we did that there is because it moves this thing up as high as possible, and if you ever do a sway lock or an anti-rock sway bar in the front, that tab has to be trimmed off anyway. So we just did that in preparation. These are the used shocks that he found. And of course you can see down here the outboard shock brackets from MetalCloak. What that does, it moves that shock position out about 1.5 inches and keeps the shock clear on the frame there during articulation. We've got the brakes bled and rerouted the ABS cables from, they were above the frame. We disconnected them. Now they run under the frame to where they're long enough and match the brake line profiles. You can see down here the pin for the sway bar, all that fresh paint. Come over here, we've got 4 inches of bump stop, so we used all the bump stop that MetalCloak had. And then of course brake lines, everything's bled. We've got the front upper arms already adjusted to the length we want, and we've tightened this jam nut. We did that off the vehicle because it's hard to get in there after the fact. These right here with that cleavite bushing will get tightened once it's all the way on the ground. And then of course we left this bolt, that jam nut, and this bolt down here for the control arm loose. That way we could fine tune his caster on the alignment rack. And then back here, we did some measures to increase tire clearance. There's a piece right here that we cut off. So down here, that was right there. So we trimmed that off for tire clearance. And probably tonight we're gonna do these rear fenders at least. Maybe take the inner fender out and then do some trimming here, possibly on the bumper, or maybe take the bumper off. Everything is just about wrapped up on the suspension though. We're going to get it over here to the alignment rack and get it all checked out. Ian, you wanna grab some touch-up paint and touch up those back pinch seams there? So everything's good, and we'll get this thing on the ground, see how she looks. So one thing to note here, the drive shaft here is at full travel. So his axle is all the way down. These shocks are pretty long. I want to say that's 12-inch travel shock, or 12.5, and this is a 2.5-inch lift. So the coils come unseated just a little bit at full droop, which is okay, that's fine. But he's gonna eventually want to do a front drive shaft here for this thing to do great off-road, so it doesn't have any binding or anything like that. Hey Ian, you know what happens when everybody else leaves us?
What?
We take the last 2 ice cream sandwiches out of the freezer. All right, here on the back where we trimmed that pinch weld, we went ahead and removed the inner fender liner, which actually came down right here, and it stuck out quite a bit in this front part of the wheel house. We took like an air saw and trimmed out. You can see here we trimmed the fender, pretty much we took half of it off the outside and smoothed it off with a grinder. We may end up having to take Mr. Bumper off for tire clearance, but turned out pretty good just for a hand grinder. So we'll get this last tire on and get this thing sitting on the ground. Well, this girl can really drop out up front. The rear, not so much, but back there, if we wanted to maximize that, we'll wait until we get it at ride height here. But on the back, one thing you can do on these JKs that's beneficial is cutting off this shock mount and moving it up about 2 inches, and then taking off the bottom part of the control arm mount, like right there, trimming that off, and it'll give you some good ground clearance gains. We'll see how this thing does get out here on the trail. All right, it's coming down for the first time ever. Let's see what it looks like. Man, it looks great. What a good stance. We're gonna get this thing rolled over here to the alignment bay, check that caster, get the steering wheel centered up, take her for a spin. We've got the heads on the wheels, and we are doing the rolling compensation now, and then we will do the steering to check the caster. Here we've got camber up here on this top left. We're not going to address anything there. We would have to buy a set of shims for the caliper bracket. But caster is looking good. It's in the green. We're gonna see if we can roll it a little more and get it around 4.5 to 5 degrees. And then of course it's both tires are pointing out going down the road, so we're gonna get that in the green as well. Thrust angle checks out. Spec on that one is 0.25 degrees plus or minus. It's in the green, close enough for us, so we're gonna get that going and go ahead and adjust this toe and fine tune that caster. When we assembled this kit, we left this bolt loose, the jam nut loose, and that loose, just so we could take this back off to adjust it. So what we've done is we dropped the front end down, turned this thing 3 full turns longer, which is roughly about 1/4 of an inch. And then now we're gonna do another caster sweep on the Jeep and see what the caster is. Before we had right at, I think it was 3.5 degrees. So we're gonna get up here and sweep it one more time and see what it is. Now that he's back in the vehicle and he's gonna steer it, we're gonna go up here to measure caster again, which is gonna be this little tab right here. And that'll prompt him to do the steering again. So let's see what we've got. All right, so that gave us about 4.5 degrees of caster, so we got another degree of caster. We're gonna stop right there because we don't want our pinion angle to be too severe. So we're gonna go ahead and get this toe fine-tuned and run this thing down the road. Got the toe adjusted now, and these wheels are steering straight ahead with good amount of caster. We may eventually address that with some camber shims on the caliper and the caliper bracket piece, or I'm sorry, it's a hub shim and a caliper bracket shim. But let's take a look at the Jeep and see what we did. This is our toe adjuster. As you can see, it's still the factory knurled piece. And basically you loosen this 15 and you can turn this. This one required the beef to turn. So Ian, we enlisted him with a pipe wrench and a cheater bar. And this stuff here is the trick Torque CB from Kimball Midwest. This is spray candy. Smells like crushed up Smarties candies that you're spraying out of a can, but it smells good while you're breaking rust free. And then our adjuster on the drag link, you can see here where it used to be versus where it is now. So once we get the toe set, then someone just sits in the Jeep and we adjust this. After loosening these two 15s, we turn this turnbuckle until the steering wheel is straight ahead. Now we're gonna go drive it down the road and see how it does. So another day has passed and Ian is back in here. They've taken off his spare tire mount with the little tiny spare tire gone.
That was flat.
That was flat, yeah, it was flat. And then this Jeep came with a receiver that hung up about 10 inches, so with a lock with no key, so we cut that off. And then he's taken off the backup camera and relocating it currently. And Jack is in the back disconnecting the camera. And tomorrow is Ian's first trail day. So we are gonna test out the Silver Bullet or Papa's Bullet, Jeep, something. Stay tuned.
Silver Bullet.
Under the hood, the old girl, Ian got him a recycled intake system from another vehicle under the hood. So give it a little throatiness there, and hopefully we won't have any water intrusion here. Come back this way some. Yep, just slow and easy. We're gonna get you up here and then turn you into it. There you go, straighten them up. Right there, yep. Slow and easy right there. Now, turn all the way to the right and just kind of just slow and easy crawl. See if it'll make this turn. There you go. Slow and easy, just barely. Hold it right there. Let's back up, hard left and back up.
Perfect. Perfect.
Good job, Ian.
Yeah, man.
Slow and easy there, cut my way. I think you're high centered. Go easy forward and all the way my way. Keep coming my way. Yeah, I think we're gonna have to pull you off of it. Well, I keep turning my way, it's starting to grab a little bit right there. Yeah, let's go rock his 4x4 here. There we go. First time using the winch. Works like a charm.